Today on BRStv Investigates, are you paying 20 times more than necessary for your favorite reefing additive? Hi guys, I'm Randy with BRStv, where we take popular reefing theories, products and gear, and put them to the test to not just uncover the facts, but oftentimes evolve the way we approach our reef tanks. This week, there's plenty of 1 to 4 part calcium and alkalinity additives out there, but so little information on how much they really cost and if more expensive options really add more value or bring more to the table for the additional hit on our wallets. To drive this point home, I'll give you a little sneak preview. The annual cost of 1 to 4 part dosing additives we'll see in today's video range from as much as $807 a year down to as low as $43. So today, let's try to add some clarity and find the answer to, do different calcium and alkalinity additives cost the same on a monthly basis? We obviously know they don't, but by how much do they differ and what do you get for the costs? So whether you're thinking of adding your first corals to your tank or already have corals and are weighing different options for sustaining their growth with calcium and alkalinity, it would be nice to know how significant any additional cost will be to allow you to provide proper care needed to keep them thriving and create the reef tank of your dreams. Out of all the options for supplementing calcium and alkalinity to the tank, 1 to 4 part dosing is the most common, and because of this, we thought it would be interesting to find out the cost differences between our 8 most popular additive supplements compared against a standard consumption rate of 1 DKH alkalinity and 7 parts per million calcium per day in a 100-gallon tank. To test this one, we'll compare our 8 most popular additives with our own BRS Pharma 2-part, ESV B-Ionic calcium buffer system, Triton Method Core 7, Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B, both liquid and powder, Aquaforest Component 1, 2, 3 Plus bundle, 2 Little Fishies Sea Balance, Brightwell's Reef Code A and B powder and liquid, and finally 4 different options from Tropic Marin with their own original balling method, carbocalcium liquid and powder, and the liquid Alpha Reef. We'll provide an equal baseline to compare all of these supplements, both dry and liquid, and the easiest way to do that is by determining how many milliliters or grams it takes for each additive to maintain a balanced tank consumption rate of 1 DKH alkalinity to 7 parts per million calcium. We selected 1 DKH and 7 parts per million because it's a fairly common consumption range for a reef tank. For reference, DBL started a reef-to-reef poll with over 350 total responses, and around 60% of the votes reported that their tanks consume 0 to 1 DKH per day. To determine the cost, we'll use the largest common size that reefers buy additives in, for instance the 7-pound sizes of BRS 2-part or the 1-liter size of Triton Core 7. Although there are other sizes available, these make up a vast majority of purchased sizes in general, and using our 100-gallon reference, they also represent the size options that most would choose for supplementing this type of tank. Most of the calculations will be done with some popular reefing calculators out there like JDeeks or those found directly on the manufacturer's sites, with the additive options that have a balanced dosing approach for 2 or more parts. The calculation will be based on the 1 DKH of consumption. However, for those additives that are not based on proportionate dosing, we'll combine the cost of maintaining 1 DKH and 7 parts per million calcium. The final cost per month will be determined using the amount of milliliters or grams it takes for each additive to maintain our target daily consumption rate, divided by the current cost for that additive size, then multiplied by a 30-day month. Alright, so let's take a look at the data as we scale up to our most popular calcium and alkalinity additive choice, starting with Brightwell's Reef Code A and B in the 2,000 milliliter premixed liquid bottle and the 4 kilogram dry powder. Both the Reef Code A and B are unique in that, unlike other options we'll see today, the Code A component not only includes calcium and strontium, but Brightwell has also added magnesium into the formula, making it a true 2-part solution capable of providing all 3 major alkalinity, calcium and magnesium elements in just 2 solutions, meaning you'd only need 2 dosing pumps for a complete dosing approach. Using our calculations for size, consumption rate, and cost, the premixed Reef Code A and B solutions have a total monthly cost of $27.11, whereas if you were to mix your own solution using the Reef Code A and B dry powder for a similar consumption rate, the cost falls significantly to $8.25 per month. So as we'll continue to see throughout today's comparison, there's definitely a cost savings here of mixing your own stock solutions versus buying them pre-mixed. In this particular case, almost a $19 savings. We've got two Little Fishies C Balance A and B and the 2-gallon option up next, which is a pretty straightforward balanced 2-part dosing system with added strontium in part A. Similar to a handful of other premixed liquid additives, the larger portions for C Balance are sort of a hybrid between dry and liquid in that they ship in a concentrated form and needs to be topped off with RODI water before use. The purpose for this is likely due to the associated cost with shipping heavier liquid containers, so rather than pass that additional cost onto the end consumer, it's easier to go the concentrated route. With that said, not including the very low fraction of RODI water costs, the use of C Balance on a 100-gallon tank with 1 DKH and 7 parts per million alkalinity and calcium demand using two Little Fishies C Balance ends up being around $26.88 per month. Up next are the 4 different calcium and alkalinity options from Tropic Marin, the 1000 ml All for Reef liquid bottle, 1000 ml carbocalcium liquid bottle, the 1400 gram carbocalcium dry powder, and the complete original balling set. Starting first with the carbocalcium and All for Reef, which are both one of the only single additive solutions currently available that address both calcium and alkalinity in concentrations that are relatively equal in comparison to most common 2-part dosing additives, meaning that they're capable of supplementing consumption demands much like 2-part dosing, yet do so using a calcium formate formulation that provides both calcium and alkalinity with just one solo additive. For those of you wondering how carbocalcium and All for Reef compares to kalkwasser, which is also a single additive that can buffer calcium and alkalinity on its own, chemical processes for how each provide calcium and alkalinity aside, one of the largest differences between them is the concentration or potency in that there is just as much calcium in 5,000 milliliters of kalkwasser as there is in just 107 milliliters of calcium formate. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at the monthly cost for using carbocalcium liquid on our 100-gallon example tank. Using the cost of a single 1000 ml bottle, we see that it winds up costing $61.37, whereas the All for Reef, which includes the calcium formate for calcium and alkalinity, with the addition of magnesium, minor and trace elements in a single bottle, comes in slightly higher at $67.27. So for most of us looking at these numbers, there's probably some sticker shock when looking at the costs, and I definitely would agree. I'd also say that although the value of a single, highly concentrated additive that is also capable of supplementing minor and trace elements is very appealing, the premixed All for Reef or carbocalcium wouldn't be my first choice for a system as large as our 100-gallon example we're using today. In fact, for me, All for Reef is a perfect option for tanks like Ryan's Softy ULM or even Zach's SPS Dominant tank, where there's less demand or smaller water volume that really starts to drive down this monthly cost. The next additive for Tropic Marin is the 1400 gram carbocalcium dry powder, which is the same formula and concentration as the liquid premixed carbocalcium when mixed up. However, one 1400 gram container of dry carbocalcium ends up yielding 10 liters or 10 times more solution than a 1000 ml premixed bottle. That difference really reveals itself when we look at the cost for dry powder carbocalcium, which in our example tank and consumption rate works out to only be $6.32 for a monthly cost for a savings of over 55 bucks. The last additive from Tropic Marin that we're looking at today is the original balling set, which is a balanced additive approach to create ionically balanced saltwater to naturally replicate natural seawater, and one of the only options that use pharmaceutical grade raw materials. Because it's balanced, all 3 components are dosed equally, making it super easy to understand and use, and at a monthly cost of $9.15 on our example tank is one of the lowest cost options we see so far that has a solution for major, minor, and trace elements. Actually, as we'll see in a little bit, the Part C component of the original balling set can also be used with other 2-part options, and on its own, Part C works out to only be $1.25 per month based on a balanced dosing method. Aquaforest Component 1, 2, 3 Plus are next. These 3 components are also a 3-part balanced dosing option that contains minor and trace elements mixed in to each component and are one of the few we calculated today in that 5,000 ml range that are ready to dose straight from the container itself. The Aquaforest bundle is pretty attractive for those who appreciate the simplicity of swapping used containers for new ones with little to no effort, and when used on a 100-gallon tank with our 1 to 7 consumption rate, ends up coming in at just $30.61 per month. Red Sea additives are next, which include the Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B in the 5,000 ml liquid bottles or 1 kilogram dry powder. Both of these additives provide calcium and alkalinity to the tank. However, there is also the addition of strontium to the Foundation A calcium component. Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B can be used on their own for supplementing calcium and alkalinity. However, Red Sea has designed a full method or multiple recipes targeted at keeping specific tank types that include the Foundation C for magnesium, as well as additional components like the Red Sea Trace colors, algae management additives, as well as coral nutrition supplements. For today's comparison, we're looking at the Foundation A and B separately, and for the pre-mixed 5,000 ml bottles that are ready to dose from the container, putting them at $24.94 for a month's use. Along with that, and as we've seen with additives that have both liquid and dry options, the Reef Foundation A and B in the powder form does end up working out to be less than if it were purchased pre-mixed. In this case, if you don't mind mixing your own stock solutions, you'll end up saving around $12.14, as 1 kilogram Reef Foundation A and B powder comes in at a monthly cost of $12.80. Since it's pretty common to use the Red Sea Trace colors with the Reef Foundation as well as other 2-part additives, we also decided to calculate its cost based on calcium consumption. So if you were to add the entire 4-part Red Sea Trace colors to the Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B, you'd actually only be adding an additional $4.70, making the total monthly cost for the premix bottles $29.64 or just $17.50 per month with the 1 kilogram powder jars. Up next are the 1,000 ml bottles of Triton Method Core 7, which is the only 4-part dosing approach we'll look at today, and what I would consider to be one of the most comprehensive dosing methods overall. The Triton method not only addresses major, minor, and trace elements in balanced dosing proportions, but is an entire holistic reef keeping method backed by lab-grade ICP testing and individual minor trace element adjustments to maintaining water parameters as close to natural seawater as possible. This is one that we've been using on the BRS 160 for well over a year now with some pretty solid results, and using our example 100-gallon system with 1 DKH and 7 parts per million consumption rate, the 7 times concentrated Core 7 works out to be $30.61, which is surprisingly low for the smaller 1,000 ml volume, but likely due to the much higher concentration than any additive we've seen here today. Triton just released a 4,000 milliliter set of all 4 Core 7 components, which ends up being the more economical choice over the smaller 1,000 ml size, changing that overall monthly cost to just $21.40. Our second most popular 2-part additive is the ESV B-Ionic calcium buffer system in the 8-gallon package. This is easily one of the oldest 2-part dosing systems, with a large number of reefers using it over the years, as it shows being one of our most popular. Much like a couple of additives we've already seen, the ESV is sort of a hybrid dry and liquid solution, where the larger options ship in concentrated containers that need to be topped off with RODI water before use, and given the slurry-like consistency of some of the components, I'd probably consider this one more in the line with a powder additive rather than a ready-to-dose liquid. That said, unlike a dry powder additive, ESV B-Ionic isn't just a calcium and alkalinity component on their own, but actually includes minor and trace elements mixed in ionic balances similar to natural seawater, and on our example tank consumption for alkalinity and calcium ends up costing $8.61 for a month's worth of use. Okay, last but not least in today's comparison is our most popular 1 to 4 part additive, the BRS Pharma 2-part in the 7-pound resealable bag. Sourcing quality 2-part additives really is where BRS started from, and since then we've consistently sought ways to provide more and higher quality material for less, which has evolved into the pharma grade 2-part we have today. We also even went the additional length of having certified ICP MS and quality testing done on not just BRS Pharmachems, but also other popular bulk aquarium additives and off-the-shelf tech grade options, where in the end we published the results to the reefing community to see for themselves. So with that, here we are again to see how the BRS Pharma two-part additives compare to other reefing additives out there from the same calcium and alkalinity consumption standard we've used so far. The BRS Pharma two-part ended up coming in at the lowest monthly cost overall at just $365 per month, which is a $63 savings from the most expensive option and a little over $250 in savings from the second lowest cost. Often reefers look to supplement trace elements with the BRS Pharma two-part, so with the cost of Red Sea Trace Colors or Tropic Marin Part C already calculated, if you were to use them along with our calcium and alkalinity two-part dosing, you'd end up adding an additional $470 per month for the Red Sea or $125 for Tropic Marin Part C, leaving you with a total monthly cost of $835 or $490 respectively. So using our tank with an example consumption rate of 1 DKH of alkalinity and 7 parts per million calcium per day on a 100-gallon tank, do different two-part additives cost the same to use on a monthly basis? Okay, so we sort of knew the answer to this one already, but I'll rate today's question as a 2 on Reef Fantasy scale, since we can clearly see significant differences between each of them, particularly as it applies to pre-mixed additives compared to those that are dry, with the added step of mixing them into solutions on your own. Let's take a look at what this means for you and your tank, first in comparison of the pre-mixed liquid solutions, where we see 7 options that have an average monthly cost of around $38.35, with the lowest cost option being the Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B at $24.94, and the highest cost option of the Tropic Marin Alpha Reef at $67.27. That does work out to be a pretty large difference between the high and the low end. However, I'm not too surprised at the additional cost for the Alpha Reef, as it does have the added value of being very convenient and that you get a single solution that can supplement not just calcium and alkalinity, but also magnesium, minor and trace elements like iodine, bromine, fluorine, selenium, molybdenum, and vanadium. As I mentioned earlier, if I were looking for a complete dosing additive where I only needed to be concerned about one dosing additive to my tank, specifically on tanks with lower demands or with smaller water volumes where the monthly costs would likely be much lower, the Alpha Reef would be an ideal choice. As for the dry additives we compared today, there were 6 options which had an average monthly cost of $8.13. BRS Pharma two-part was the lowest cost of the bunch at $365, while at only $9.15 more was the Red Sea Reef Foundation A and B at $12.80. The real standout to me in the dry additive comparison was the second lowest cost additive overall, the 1400 gram carbocalcium dry powder at only $6.32 per month. Meaning that for less than $3 more per month, I can maintain the same 100-gallon tank at 1 DKH daily consumption from a single solution using one dosing pump. After talking with Lou over at Tropic Marin, I also found out that because of the concentration of carbocalcium when mixed per their instructions, you can actually add Tropic Marin Pro Coral K+ and A- together into the mixed carbocalcium solution without them precipitating. This is as long as you mix it in an 8 to 1:1 ratio, meaning that for 8 liters of carbocalcium solution, you can add a 1 liter bottle of each K+ and A- to end up with a complete single solution where you would only need to supplement magnesium as needed. Each 1 liter bottle of Pro Coral Trace Element solution comes in at an additional $31.42, so the added cost would likely be a factor here, but for those reefers looking for 10 liters of one single additive to dose to the tank, this would definitely be one I'd consider. So I'm going to go ahead and say that it's mostly agreed that major elements like calcium and alkalinity are the most important ones to really focus on and maintain correctly, as they have the largest impact on coral calcification and are most consumed inside the tank. This is why our primary focus in today's episode was specifically targeted at the cost of maintaining these major foundational elements over the importance of maintaining other minor and trace elements, which is still a topic up for debate on just how important they are to coral health, growth, and metabolic function. I think we can all agree that these minor and trace elements outside of calcium and alkalinity do play a vital role in coral's life, but to what degree, and more specifically, which elements in particular perform which function are likely still up for some discussion and further testing. However, as we've seen today, several additive brands recognize their importance and either include some or most of the minor and trace elements mixed into the calcium and alkalinity solutions themselves, or have a separate program for addressing them on their own. Either way, putting some deliberate thought into minor and trace elements is likely best practice overall, even if it's as simple as a healthy water change schedule or as comprehensive as purposely dosing something like a 4-part approach like the Red Sea trace colors. Ryan discusses how these various approaches are done and ways you can explore complementing your 2-part dosing with minor and trace elements in your own tank in his episode from the BRS WWC Hybrid series on major, minor, and trace elements. So take a look for yourself at the link over there, particularly around the 24-minute mark, and our best videos on all additive topics at the other link, and we'll see you next time on BRStv Investigates.